slips, falls down. Well, Will Smith has no idea.
Get your bras on, ladies. It's baseball season. Click like and subscribe.
Enough of the hanging memories. Let's get it going.
Oh, Dad, you want to do what? You want to do one? I'm gonna cry. That was so bad.
Yesterday was the last day of football season. People said that, now football's a national pastime because everybody watches it, they bet on it, it's fantasy and everything like that. Let me tell you the joy about ending football season. Now we're going to enter a season where your team plays every day. You don't have to wait a week to watch them play. And if they lose today, tomorrow they can get up and kick that other team's behind and you feel better all over again. You don't have to spend a week depressed. So every day is Resurrection Day in baseball. No matter how you did the day before, we go get them today. That is so wonderful to wake up and know there's a game on today. Not, it's Friday, I got to wait 2 more days. So we're getting into the real sports now, whether people recognize it or not.
And the other thing to add on to that, which is really great for everybody, when you lose money on day 1 of baseball, day 2's right there. You can make that money right back. And with all these great sports gambling sites now, I mean, you don't have to wait till next Saturday or next Sunday. You don't even have to wait to lay a parlay down. You can do that every day of the week.
Sure, you can go broke in 4 days.
4 days, bring it back up. Pick it back up. You want to know a stock market that always is going? You, because you're a winner. And you can gamble better than everybody else. Better than Vegas. So make it happen. Anyways, welcome to SwingBadder. I am your host, Brendan. Joining me today, the one, the only, Dad. How you doing?
Wonderful. Do you know that I had a dream about this last night, that I went and watched SwingBadder and I forgot to push like and subscribe. And I woke up in a panic, sweating, sheets soaked. Like, subscribe, sleep better.
Like and subscribe, sleep better. You'll get over the flu faster. And also joined by my other favorite, Todd. How you doing?
I'm fantastic because I'm eating a giant bowl of homemade pasta, as we do here on Long Island. And I got to tell you something. Nobody does it better than my father-in-law, who brings it home every single week. Solid. I look at the size of this meatball. If the meatball's so big you can't eat it in one bite, that's a proper meatball. That's a proper meatball.
You didn't tell them you already ate half of it.
Well, yeah. Well, the dusting of Parmesan cheese, and it's something this size killed the dinosaurs. That's all you need to know.
That is a very true statement. That's science. You get your science at SwingBadder.
That's
and
right.
Now for our favorite segment, Rounding Third, where we get to go into the mind of our father and hear some stories of the past, if not stories that are near and dear to his heart. Welcome to Rounding Third. Dad, what do you have for us today?
Well, I have a story that will help you learn American history with a baseball story. How's that? In the end of 1957, the New York Giants and Brooklyn Dodgers announced that they were taking their program to the West Coast. And America, for the first time, would have Major League Baseball on the West Coast in San Francisco and Los Angeles. But what people don't know is that deal was signed and delivered in 1941. In 1941, the owner of the St. Louis Browns, this is that terrible team that did nothing but lose and couldn't draw people because the Cardinals were out drawing them. In desperation, they said, we got to pack up and move. He went to Los Angeles and had a signed deal with the city of Los Angeles. The St. Louis Browns would move there. And it didn't happen. The answer to why it didn't happen is the beginning of my story. So, to get ready for it, we got to have a couple of flaming hots for this story.
Couple of leftovers from the party.
These are fresh, man. Can you get a fresh flaming hot? The owner of the St. Louis Browns came back to announce he was moving to California to the owners' meeting. Except the owners' meeting was scheduled to be held on December 8th, 1941. Now, if you people know your history, you'll know on December 7th, 1941, Pearl Harbor was bombed. So the meeting couldn't happen, and everything went into some sort of a panic. Back then, the only sport that all of America followed was baseball. And we were now going into a serious war. I don't know if people realize what it was like during World War II. I was not alive, but I know this story to give you what went on in this country. The whole country went to war. My mother was from a family of 10. Her oldest brother had an arm that didn't work, so he couldn't go anywhere. But the other 9 children, everybody went to war. I mean, not the women, but if you were a sister, her husband went to war. If you were a brother, you went to war. All 9 of them that were staying home, the women stayed home, and the men were all gone. They weren't gone for 6 months. They were gone for 2 or 3 years. And they only got occasional letters from them where they couldn't disclose where they were or what they were doing. And that's the way they lived for a few years, all the women helping out raising the children. The only men left at home were people who were older or couldn't qualify for the draft because of their health. So baseball at that time had a very serious meeting about canceling, just completely canceling the season. It was President Roosevelt that went to the commissioner of baseball, and I'm reading a quote from him. He said, "I honestly feel that it would be best for the country to keep baseball going." The problem was the draft. Every American male between 21 and 36 was required to register for a minimum of 12 months service. So how are you going to field the baseball teams when your players are all going to war? So here's a history of what happened from 1942 through 1945 in Major League Baseball. Couple of points, maybe not meaningful. The very first major leaguer to sign up to go to war was a guy by the name of Losing Pitcher Mulcahy. He was called Losing Pitcher Mulcahy because in the previous 4 seasons he had lost 76 games. Not really Mulcahy's fault. He played on the Phillies, who were finishing 45 to 50 games out of first every year. But he was the first guy to sign up. The second one made history. Hank Greenberg had won the American League Most Valuable Player, and I think it was 1938. He hit 58 home runs. He signed up, was the second player that says, "I'm going to war." Gave up a $55,000 salary to make $21 a month. Oh, unbelievable. And that was the sacrificial nature of America at the time. Anything to win this war. Bob Feller, Stan Musial, Ted Williams, Joe DiMaggio, off to war. Okay? 4,000 baseball players in the major and minor leagues were off fighting war. Okay? Industrial giants like motor vehicle companies started manufacturing military vehicles instead. Louisville Slugger stopped making bats so they could manufacture stocks for carbine rifles. Furthermore, Japan outlawed baseball. because it was an insidious American influence. So what happens naturally, as you can imagine, the quality of play of the major leagues for those years went downhill. It was gradual because in the first year, a lot of guys stayed around and played with what they called a family exemption. Stan Musial, Ted Williams, a lot of famous players were married and had children and were allowed to stay. But after 1 year, they signed up and went, partly because the fans didn't understand how these able-bodied men were not off fighting when their sons were. So they started joining. So what happens is the Major League now takes on gradually takes on a different look. Hall of Famer, 40-year-old Paul Wainer comes out to play for his Pirates. Journeyman players who never heard of before, Orris Hockett, Nick Etten, become stars of the league because they're the best ones playing. By 1943, the Japanese had conquered the rubber plants. So rubber had to get rationed, and Major League Baseball had to reconstruct the balls they used. They used a product called Balata, which is 25% less resilient in the core of the ball. And it was so hard, players said if you got good wood on a ball, your hands stung because that ball was so heavy, and it went nowhere. In the first 29 games of the year with Balata ball, there were 11 shutouts because the people couldn't hit the ball. So then baseball ordered the balls to use all the old balls that they had hanging around, to use the old balls, and then they manufactured a new one with unhardened rubber. The first day the new ball came out, there were 6 home runs hit. Prior 72 games with Balata ball, all 72 games, there were only 9 home runs, and we had 6 in the first day. So the quality of play, the changes that went on, bats had inferior quality wood. Baseball players who used to travel on Pullman trains and ate steaks were now sleeping on train benches and eating macaroni because the food had to go overseas to the soldiers. Teams started drafting players who had a 4F, meaning you couldn't get in the military because of your health, including a guy who became a really good player named Lou Boudreau. He had bone spurs, couldn't go in the military. By 1944, the St. Louis Browns had figured out this was their chance to win. So they fielded a team of the oldest and most experienced 4F players they could find. And in that year, the St. Louis Browns won their only pennant while they were in there and ended up losing the World Series, but that's how they won. There was a player named Danny Galehouse playing for the Browns. He worked in a factory all week long manufacturing airplanes, but pitched on Saturdays and Sundays for the Browns and won 9 games during the course of the year. So this was just crazy. During World War II, there were, listen down, now we don't have the population back then we have now, 11 million American men in service. By 1945, 60% of the pre-war baseball players were fighting the war. So the teams had players like Cincinnati had a 46-year-old pitcher, and he had a 43 and a 40-year-old teammate. The 40-year-old was a concert violinist for Buffalo Philharmonic during the evenings, and when that wasn't going on, he'd go play baseball. Retired players like Jimmy Fox came out to help the teams, only Jimmy Fox decided that rather than be a all-star hitter, which he was, he pitched to give everyone a chance. The Reds brought out a 15-year-old high school kid during the war, a fellow by the name of Joe Nuxhall. He pitched 2/3 of an inning, gave up 5 runs, and walked 5 people in a game that was lost 19-0. Now, the funny story about Joe is he went into the minors, and in 1952 actually came up to the majors and had a decent career, winning 135 games. But he was the youngest player to ever play a Major League Baseball game. Now, the story culminates with a player named Pete Gray. In 1945, again, our heroes, the St. Louis Browns, had an outfielder named Pete Gray who had one arm. One arm. And he played outfield, batted with one arm, fielded with one arm, catch the ball, toss it up, put the glove under his armpit, catch it, throw it in. And the mixture of response to Pete was America loved him. He was a symbol of courage. He became American hero. The players on the Browns hated him. They feel that his play cost them 8 to 10 wins that year, and they lost the pennant by one game. So one player quit the team. He said, I'm not playing with a one-armed guy. But to America, he was a hero. Pete Gray played one season with one arm. I think he played in 61 games. So the story ends this way. The war ended, and in 1946, baseball and the United States returned to normalcy. In the end, 2 major leaguers were killed during the war, 57 minor leaguers. The point of the story is that baseball at that time in our history reflected the United States of America. We were at war. Those that were here did the best they could to keep things going. But if you could, you were overseas. So Pete Gray was a hero to the country. The players trying to win the pennant were not happy he was on the team. In the end, by 1946, baseball in the United States returned to normalcy. 2 major leaguers were killed during the war. 57 minor leaguers were killed. But the point of the story is that baseball, the history of baseball resembled the attitude of the whole country. The most important thing became the war and doing everything you could to win the war. But those who were left behind, they did everything they could to live as normal a life as possible. And that's reflected. We looked at the baseball records from 1942 through 1945, and we find out all these crazy things that happened.
Pete Gray is something else. So, everybody was mad at him, right? They're mad because, I don't want to play with the one-armed guy. Say what you want about the WAR, it says, wins above replacement player. He had a defensive win above replacement player of 0.1. So he actually defensively was 0.1 game better than the average replacement player that season with one arm. If only those guys knew about WAR. Then they wouldn't have been so biased against a one-armed fielder.
Yeah, it was
I
war.
don't know.
Yeah.
His offensive WAR was a negative 1.2, so he probably did cost him the pennant.
Well, I think with one arm, the best he could do was get a single. But he lost his arm when he was a child in a farming accident. But he was a good athlete, and he loved playing baseball, and he actually played 2 years in the minors before 1945 when St. Louis decided, hey, let's have a one-armed outfielder this year.
Why do I feel like everything in the 40s and before was a farming accident? Everything that happened. Well, how did he get so big? Well, he's a farmer's kid. He just ate. Well, how did he lose his arm? Farming accident. Why does he walk with a limp? Farming accident. Why does he have 2 eyes in 3 years? Farming accident. Yeah, you just blame it on the farm.
It'd be interesting to see what percentage of Americans worked on farms back then. Now it's none. But
Oh, it had to be, what,
Large percentage.
60, 70%?
I don't know.
Well, in World War II, I think everybody had to have a chicken. Didn't you have to have, I've seen like PR materials where it was like, every person needs like 3 to 5 chickens in the backyard to have fresh eggs. That way you're not taking food from the troops, just logistically feeding 11 million, right?
Yeah.
And more.
Right.
They were sending food over there for other, as they kept going into territories.
Dad,
Yeah.
Grandpa went over, I think he served in Guam, right?
Yeah.
In his time in there? Yeah.
Yeah.
How many years was he in?
Here's a couple, because my brother had just been born, and he went off to war. And when he came back, my brother was a little kid. He remembers he had to go to a train station with his mom, and this stranger in a uniform got off the train. His mother's kissing him, and he said, "What's going on here?" And then he was more shocked when the guy came home with his mother. He said, "What's the deal here?"
She not talk about him at all?
Well, he has a way to tell a story, too.
Who is this guy?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
But it was a commitment on so many different levels of just we're going to stick this out. The people who were sacrificing overseas, the people who were stayed at home, were in communion of that decision. So there was a sacrifice on both sides. So if somebody was asked to do sacrifice at home, they were more than willing. And even in the one could say even in the sacrifice of we need to play baseball to keep people's minds at ease. And there's a great argument for that, especially what sports does to the human psyche, to have that entertainment value, to be able to watch. We just come, baseball season, to your point, is starting, and football season just ended. To have that, everyone coming together and cheering, cheering for a common good, even if it's your city, even if it's a team, that you're just hoping for, or somebody that you may recognize. You can relate to somebody who you knew playing in those areas.
Well, that's an excellent point, because after 1945, and people were settling back, getting jobs in factories and trying to raise their family, a baseball game was like a way for the community that you lived in, whether it was Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, or whatever, to go and just cheer for the guys. And so it was rebuilding the community too.
And there's a lot of healing when you're talking about being able to release or to allow that enjoyment to take place with a group of people. There's a lot of healing there, and you can only imagine what a lot of the folks did see coming back, because obviously there was we talk now about post-traumatic stress and all of the things that are now normal terminologies that we all very much understand. And you're talking about an era where that was not only not understood, but it was pretty much ignored. You came back and now you had work to do, because that same generation that fought that war, you look at what they were able to accomplish. I mean, you're talking about, what you're talking about with the energy sector, what you're talking about with the cities, the development of the industrial age. I mean, they came back to America, and America went into fifth gear.
Well, they had to rebuild the world.
And
They had to rebuild the world. Everything was destroyed, right?
So you talk about from a farm field to a industrial zone, plants, you name it. They were working in some very hazardous conditions. And when you say work, these were not, we got a lot of light sensitive folk out there who are out there mashing on their keyboards, and we like you to comment so we can cry a little bit on our side. But these men went into these factories. I mean, they were working 12-hour shifts, 5 days a week, 6 days a week, picking up overtime shifts to feed the family. And there was no stop. And these, we talk about, you should take a break. You should worry about your health. You should, I'm not saying you shouldn't worry about those things, but you're talking about a generation that just said, give me another cup of coffee, give me another pack of cigarettes, let's build this place. And they went to work. And there's a beauty in that.
By the way, as a humorous offshoot, and I think, there's been a lot written about like the greatest generation. One-Armed Gray did not have the most errors at left field in 1945 when he played. That honor went to a gentleman who called himself the ugliest man in baseball, who had not been in the majors since 1939. His name was Johnny Dickshot.
That's a good name.
You look it up, because I did. Johnny Dickshot had the most errors in left field. He had his best season of professional ball ever in 1945 at the age of 35, playing against all the young kids when he finally was able to make hay and make a name for himself. But called himself, his nickname was Ugly. Called himself the ugliest man in baseball. Got a little...
when they were doing record comparisons, they took a look at a guy like Ted Williams, and they realized, and Bob Feller too, that they were 3 years in the prime of their career that they put up no numbers. So when you look at their retirement numbers, I know at Ted Williams, they said, you got to add 40 homers a year times 3 to his homer total. And all of a sudden, that guy becomes one of the best power hitters ever. And Bob Feller with his strikeouts, he was a huge strikeout pitcher. They were in the 20s. They were going then, and they never played those years.
Well, think about this. I think we wrote about this with Juan Soto. Juan Soto's was just 23 last year. Same exact age that Ted Williams was when he went to war. And they were not nearly the same player. Ted Williams was mashing it like crazy. In the year before Ted Williams went to war, he had 137 RBIs, 36 home runs, batted .356, on-base percentage of .499. His on-base percentage, one of every 2 times he went to the bat. The year before that was the year he batted .406 and had an on-base percentage of .553. But how much money would Ted Williams have gotten in a contract just this last year?
Yeah, it's just a different world. Totally different world.
Going into 24 years old? Holy cow. That's, I don't know. But I heard stories where even when he was flying in World War II, where his eyesight was so good, like one of the best in his squadron. Like he could see stuff that was just way far off, and just something with the genetics and his eyesight, he was able to see things.
I am sure there are people watching this with tremendous Ted Williams stories. If you're from Boston area or you've read books about him, because he was truly amazing. But really, to me, when I did this work on this story, I just thought to myself, it made me more proud of our country. There's a lot of things that our country did that was wrong and bad and still does. And right now we're in an era where we're kind of going through all of our sins and our horrible things. But there were some things they did that were just amazingly sacrificial and admirable. And I think those people, my cousins and I, we always commented that these uncles and my father went to war. Do you know, in my family anyways, they never talked about the war. We would have to ask them questions and they would give us like 1-sentence answers. We could never understand that because it occupied so much of their life. But they just came back, like you said, Brendan, went down to the plant, wherever they were going to work, and put in their 40, 50 hours of hard labor there and raised their family, and that was just the way they approached life.
The thing that I think we miss quite a bit when you look back at this, there was 2 things that I think were evident in the whole entire era, is there was a grace and a gratefulness. People were grateful for the folks that did go over, and they were grateful for the folks that did not, because both sides believed that they had each other during that time. And then they also gave each other grace. There was a lot of grace giving. There was not you stayed here, I was over there, I deserve X, Y, or Z. They were very, you came back, and again, people were given grace. No one berated or asked them a million questions. If they wanted to share, they could share. If they didn't have to. But they were a tremendously grateful people. They were grateful for winning and defeating it, because that was a big fear. And when you defeat something that's a very big fear, you're grateful for all of the hard work everyone put in, and everyone felt like they put in together. They did their little small part. And then they gave each other tremendous grace, because the last thing they wanted to do is have more of it. They already saw and read so much about the evils. And all it did after the war is just unveil more and more evils. So people were more willing to give other human beings the grace to say, this was really, really terrible. And to your point about American history is, it doesn't mean that America didn't have sins, and it doesn't mean that America didn't have their own faults and flaws, but there's a lot of lessons to be made about being grateful for the positions that we have and giving each other grace. Those are two things that I'm not going to say are solely missed, because that certainly does occur, but the gratefulness aspect. I think there's two words I always say to people when they're growing up. What can you be that's bad? I say greedy and fat. You're always full and you're always greedy. You think you deserve more than you have and you eat way too much, or you just think you deserve it all that much. If you're grateful and hungry, I'll take that 10 days out of 10. If somebody is grateful and they're hungry for it, they're going to work hard and they're going to be very thankful for all of all the joys and the hardships, both, because they know the struggle is a good. It's good for the soul. Good for them.
So my conclusion about today is that studying baseball history reveals a lot about America, but also about humanity. And some of it's not nice, and some of it's doggone admirable. And this was the admirable part today.
Yeah, I think it was a great story.
When did Japan start playing baseball again?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Did we force them to?
No,
one of the agreements of the surrender was you need to bring baseball back.
Well,
right.
That recovery had to have been very difficult, because that did not end well for them.
No.
Yeah, you talk about like grace and kind of forgiveness and that type of thing, and it's always remarkable to me. It seems like it was within 20, 30 years that you start having relations again with the country, and people are moving on and moving forward. And I think in a lot of ways sports helps to mend those divides, and helps to heal a lot of those things. I mean, we dump a little bit on like that the Dodgers World Series, because it was the Texas Rangers bubble series, right? Whatever. But it just kind of was a good thing to have as a country, like at a time when like everybody's being told to like shut down, lock down, don't do anything. And I could completely understand why at a time like World War II, people are going off to war, just being able to sit back and relax for a couple hours and enjoy a baseball game.
Yep.
Even with one-armed Gray there and Johnny Dickshot in left field.
I'm the ugliest man ever.
Get some entertainment out of the whole thing.
Yeah, it's the human soul can be stressed and stretched for a very long time, and those avenues of entertainment that allow you to just sit back and enjoy the richness of something that you admire. Because at the end of the day, we admire the skills of these baseball players. We admire the skills of these athletes. They're truly remarkable, and we get the joy to watch them. And it's good to remember that, and I appreciate it. This is a wonderful story, Dad. I appreciate it. And again, we have some hard stuff and some good stuff, but these stories, again, it's always good to relive them through your eyes as well. So that's our show for Rounding Third, and I appreciate everyone for joining us. And Dad, I appreciate the story. It was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. This was a heck of a time. It was good to remember.
Good stuff.
Until next time, folks, thanks so much for tuning in. We appreciate you, and we appreciate your likes. We appreciate your subscriptions, and we thank you for making us a part of your daily routine.